And coming up next, we will have Paul Jackowski. And Paul's going to be presenting on Power BI. And we'll have his session maybe go into the lunch break just a few minutes. If he gets it done before then, that's fine. But and Paul will also be available afterwards to answer questions on his topic, Power BI. Paul, I'm going to stay on until you share out your screen, and I'll confirm your audio is good.
Okay, are we good, Randy?
I can see your screen, and
you can hear me?
I can hear you well, Paul. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to talk today. About using Power BI with Microsoft Operation Management Suite to visualize and analyze your on-premise operations data using Power BI. So a little bit of personal information first. I'm a Silec co-founder. We've been in business working with Microsoft System Center technology since 2003. Back then, the product wasn't actually known as System Center Operations Manager. It was known as MUM, which stood for Microsoft Operations Manager. And our initial product in that area was something called MUM Health Reporter, which no longer exists, but it had some pretty sweet dashboard capabilities and reporting capability. And I'd kind of like to think that things have come full circle now, in that with Power BI and OMS, you can create some pretty exciting and sexy dashboards the way we tried to do back in 2003 with MUM Health Reporter. It's great, all the work that Microsoft has poured into OMS and Power BI, and just shared that with the rest of us to get stuff up and running really quickly. I apologize a little bit. I've got a little bit of a sore throat today, so hopefully I won't be coughing too much during the presentation. I may need to take a break for water once in a while. So I'm going to show you how to leverage the rich presentation and analysis capabilities of Power BI with OMS. The plan's to go through a demonstration that I build that leverages the OMS and Power BI platforms in conjunction with some work that was done as part of our high trust real-time compliance pack to provide a cloud-based view of the on-premise computer compliance with the HIPAA framework, which HIPAA stands for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And if you're not aware of it and you're involved in IT, chances are you will become aware of it at some point in the future, because it seems to be extending into all facets of businesses. A little bit of background, it's assumed that people are going to learn, already know about System Center Operations Manager, and hopefully have some basic knowledge of what OMS is and Microsoft Power BI, but we'll be talking about those last two in a lot more detail. System Center Operations Manager, SCOM, everybody knows what that is. I don't think we have to talk about that. OMS actually extends and complements the System Center installation, and it provides a simpler, more powerful operations dashboards and reports. I think most people tend to think of OMS as being a replacement for SCOM, and maybe that'll happen long-term wise, but in the short term, it works as a really good adjunct to SCOM, in that you can actually onboard your SCOM data into OMS and then use the richer dashboarding experience, as well as bringing machines that aren't monitored by SCOM into the same common framework and providing a single pane of glass view on everything. And one of the things I really like about OMS is that OMS provides the ability to visualize and analyze data in a lot more depth. It provides they have two delivery mechanisms currently. There's a desktop application and a web-based SaaS version. What we tend to do is we tend to use the desktop application for prototyping, and it's very similar to Excel in a lot of ways, and I think you'll find it pretty easy to use. So it's very valuable if you just want to try something out and create some sample reports. You can take some data from Excel or CSV files or whatever and just look at what you're doing. And then once you've got management buy-in in terms of what types of reports you're looking at providing, then you can use Power BI, the SaaS implementation, to actually create those reports, upgrade them regularly, and make that information available to your Office 365 user group community, or to individuals via regular sharing and so on. So here's the plan. I'm going to start by showing the final solution within Power BI, and I'm going to describe a little bit about how it was implemented. So we have a script that runs on OMS, and that script runs against all the individual computers that we're monitoring, and that script writes data to the event logs. OMS reads in the event log data. We use the OMS custom field capability to reformat the data into usable chunks of data into a usable format. OMS then exports that data into Power BI as data sets. We create 2 for our solution. And then Power BI creates the reports, or has the reports to visualize the data in the dashboard, which brings the report tiles up and surfaces them as the most important piece of the puzzle. So to understand the solution, there's 2 concepts you have to understand. The HITRUST pack has a safeguard, and a safeguard is a single test done to determine a specific setting on a computer. So for example, one of those might be whether antivirus software was installed on your computer, or whether a Java plugin was enabled in a web browser, which is kind of a no-no nowadays, according to most people. A safeguard is implemented via a PowerShell script, and there's a one-to-one script to safeguard relationship. Each script implements a single safeguard. Safeguards roll up into something known as a control, which is a grouping used to combine the security rules together into a common category. So an example of a control from the HITRUST framework would be controls against mobile code. When HITRUST refers to mobile code, they're talking about mobility as an internet connection. That's what they consider mobile. And safeguards are associated with one or more controls, in that, the antivirus being in existence could affect a number of different controls in your environment, and we'll look at that in more detail and see that there's actually 3. So the solution executes all of the safeguards on a group of computers. Controls are identified as non-compliant if one of their safeguards fail. Computers are identified as compliant if all their safeguards and controls pass and are compliant. That's pretty rare in our test environment right now. We have some pretty interesting setup there, but most of our stuff you're going to see today is going to fail, and that'll show you some pretty interesting results. So, work in progress. Let's just see what we've got to show you here. So let's go first to the Power BI solution. So here's our dashboard. So within Power BI, you have the concept of dashboards, which are the highest level component. Reports roll up into dashboards, and data sets. And data sets are the raw data which are used to make the reports and roll things up. So let's look at this solution here. You can see that when you click on something in the dashboard, it actually takes you down into a report. So this is the HITRUST Computer Compliance Report. You can see this report actually has multiple pages of data. Okay, so that was that set of, and actually let's go back to our dashboards here. And you can see that we have some other reports. So if you look at the safeguards, here's safeguard compliance, and very interesting. So there's your different safeguards that we talked about. There's the controls, and you can see the relationship between them. So if I click on the light green is the stuff that's compliant, the dark stuff that's non-compliant. When you click on it, you can see that they're all interrelated, and now here you're only seeing the compliant ones, and you're actually seeing the controls as well too that are positively affected by that. And you can see there's 5, 5, and 5, which gives you 15. If you look at the non-compliant, then you can see in this table. So it's very interactive, very exploratory in terms of looking at what you want to see. Okay, so I think that gives you an idea of where we're heading for, so let's see how we end up getting to that place where we can do our fancy reports. So within OMS, you can see OMS has this thing called solutions. And I'm just going to show you quickly some of the solutions that are available. We've installed quite a few of them here, but here's the whole gallery. Very, very amazing set of stuff. Definitely recommend that you download this and try it out, and try some of these solutions in your own environment. You know, if you're doing SQL monitoring for, you know, you're running SQL servers, you might want to actually just run the SQL assessment tool. You can look for update. There's update management stuff going on. All kinds of interesting stuff. We're just going to look at one of the ones that I've installed here. So the Anti-Malware Assessment. This data actually here, the alert management, that's actually coming in from our SCOM environment, but let's look at the Anti-Malware Assessment. And you can see some interesting stuff. So you can see what products are being used to protect our machines, and we want to look and see which machines are running Windows Defender, and everything in OMS is made up of search queries, so you can actually do some changes to the query. And now you can see, okay, here's the two machines that are actually using Windows Defender, and they're two desktop machines that we have in their environment. One's my personal VM that I'm running right now, and the other's a little test one. So you can get an idea of how things are available through the solution packs. Basically, OMS is just this huge store of different types of information. So let's look at some of the types of information that we have within OMS. And there's just some different types of information, but you know, we don't really get a good view of what's there, so we can measure count by type, and let's just, oops, and it's case sensitive. You learn that, oops, and I typed that in wrong. There we go. So you can see we've got event data, alert data, and we can look at the log, IIS log data, some useful information there. And we could use this if we wanted to export the data. Any of the data that you see here can be exported using the techniques that I'm going to show you to get OMS data up to Power BI and then visualize there. So let's look at something I find interesting, and you all might as well too, is let's look at security event data. So there's all our security type data that we've got. And, you know, it's just an interesting list. There's a lot of records there, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on. But again, let's look at again, we can modify the query and look at where the stuff is running on each computer. Let's see who's contributing. And actually, that's interesting and not too surprising. It's our SCOM server that's contributing most of the security events. But that's not actually the type of information that looks too useful. So let's look at it based on the activity. And now, this is looking a little more useful. So let's say we've got this data, and we want to put it up to Power BI and make that visible in a dashboard. How would we do that? So you can see across the top here, we have the ability to take the results of a search and then export it to a Power BI data set. So let's just call this webinar security event. Use the current search query, and we're going to webinar security data set. we're going to schedule it to take this data as it's coming in from our OMS environment, and every hour we're going to push it up to Power BI. So we save that, and that's been created. Now, unfortunately, it takes a while for this stuff to run. So I'm going to show you the Power BI query. And that's the one I just created. You can see it's there, and it actually hasn't run yet. It's been successfully created, but I'm going to delete it because I already created one so that we'd already have some data running for us in the Power BI. There's a little bit of a window when the data gets uploaded, so to make sure things worked fine for the demo today, I pre-did the data. So you can see that we've got this data set, security event activities, that was created from that same data. So let's go into Power BI now, and let's look at the data set, security event activities. So this is actually something I'd like to point out. When most people log on to Power BI SaaS, they sort of look at it and they click on some of the sample dashboards and stuff like that, but they don't actually know how to get going in terms of creating their own dashboard and report. So the way that I like to recommend is you look at the lowest level first and you work your way up. So here we're looking at the security event activities, and you can see here's the results from the data set. And we've got, let's see, the activity and the aggregated value. So that looks kind of, that's interesting. That looks kind of useful, but you know what? It doesn't really give me anything that I can say looks like an exciting graph. So I can start looking at it and start playing around with things. Does that work very well? I'm not a big fan of that. Oh, excuse me. You can look at the different charts and stuff like that, and none of them really. This one's kind of interesting, and for other forms of data, it might be good. It actually shows things into perspective, shows you, the most important security events, whether the account was logged on and logged off. This is kind of scary, special privileges to new login. But anyway, so it shows you the relative importance or quantity of this security events. The one that I kind of like to do is this one here, and I find that kind of useful, but there's some stuff I don't like about it. To start off with, I'm not a big fan of the way that it's ordering things. So it's sorting things based on the activity, but really I'd kind of like to see it sorted by the aggregate value. So if I look at that, that's much more valuable to me because it sort of sorts it in the order where the most frequent stuff is up at the top. And some of the things that I'd like to do now is I like to visually sort of improve what I'm seeing there. So like the title is kind of like yucky, actually, the default. So I'd write to security events inside my network. And I'm going to change the font color, something a little more visible. I like to put it in the middle. And let's start looking at making it a little bit bigger there. Okay, so there's some interesting stuff there, but you know what? I'd like to see that, but there's something just missing. I kind of like to get a better idea of what the values actually are so I can put the data labels in place and I can actually see what the quantity of information is so I can see how important something is that's happened. And so there you go, and you get an idea of the relative importance and what's going on in your environment. And the other thing is data colors. Maybe you're not a big fan of that data color. You want something a little more muted or a little more vibrant if you think that those are things that you're concerned about. So you can just turn those off or on. And visually provide something that makes a lot of sense. Once you're into this state and you've created a solution like this, you can then save it away as a report. So you can see the save. and I'll call this one Webinar Security Events Report. It's a very simple report, so you can see it now. And let's say that we want to start pinning this. Now, we had something more with more pages, we might want to do it, but let's say we want to save a report. So webinar, I already did. Okay, so we want to create a new dashboard here. So now we're going to pin it to this new dashboard. And so hopefully, yes, there we go. And so there's our webinar security events, and you can basically, create other pages on your report. So you click in. I want to create an additional page on the report. I can do that, edit the report, create a new page, and let's say I want to look at just the raw data results that are there. Store that, we can do that. We can do all kinds of things, but I just wanted to get you an overview of what sort of things you can do, and we can, if we want to we could pin that, put it on the dashboard. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do that, and we can create filters and so on, and filter out items so you're only looking at events that you look like you're interested in looking at, and you can ignore the ones that you don't. And don't forget, this data is coming in regularly, so the dashboards are going to be updated on an hourly basis as new data comes in from new security events. Okay, so that's security events. I showed you how to do the Power BI. So let's go back to OMS and quickly, because let's see how we're doing for time here. Okay, yeah, I don't want to run too far over, so I'm just going to show you within OMS, there's some other data that you can get that's pretty cool. So let's look at, I've got some predefined queries. That'll be faster than typing them in. So let's look at performance data that we've been collecting within, and we've got all our performance data here. And again, we can modify these queries to look at them based on a computer but you know what, I think I'm going to skip that step, and I'm just going to look at it by a counter name. So let's look at the performance data based on the counter name. And processor time, I'm kind of curious what's going on in my network. Let's see the machines. So you know what, looking at the raw data isn't too useful, but within OMS, once things happen, you can look at the metrics, and I can hopefully, there we go, up and running, and you can see some interesting data. And some of these machines have been powered off their VMs and haven't been powered back on yet, so that's why these guys here are actually not reporting any data. And there's times, I think, when the network was shut down. So there's some gaps in the thing. But you can actually look at this, and it's actually very, very useful at getting an idea of what's going on in your network. Again, if you want to, you can take any of these queries and update the data into Power BI and provide some very useful utilization statistics for management on what's going on in your corporate network environment. I'm really blown away by this technology. It's very, very impressive stuff. And actually, just show you one more thing. We want to look at, yeah, you still want to look at what's going on. So let's look at this machine here, and that's our Hyper-V machine that we've got running here, and we can actually look at all the perf counters that we've got. Now we've only put a small set here because this is a lab environment, but you can put as many, many as you'd like to monitor your network environment to see what's going on here. Okay, and just to show you where that data is coming in from, you can see the data, and Windows performance counters. So there's the data that we're looking at there. And you can add new ones if you want. So yeah, it should just search. Okay, well, we're running on for time. Yeah, there we go. Well, you can actually search for different providers and so on. I just wanted to show you how easy it is to add a new provider in there if you want more data. Okay, so that's performance data, and we also have event data, which is the most important stuff for our high trust solution. So it's all based on some event log data that we have here. And the event log data is coming in. You can see it here. We'll look here. So oh, this is the old stuff. We want to look at the new stuff. I just view computer. Sorry for the delays. Network must be busy today. Okay, let's try this one. There we go. A little bit faster. Okay, so this is all the rule-based event log stuff. They happen to be event ID 100 and 102. It's coming from our source and actually our select log as well too. You can see that in table form here. And you can see the data. And the interesting thing you'll notice here is that even though we're doing the event log data, we've got some additional information that's not in the event log directly. And we're going to show you how we create that data. So there's the data. We have a bunch of data for the actual safeguards that we showed you, and we actually have show you some data, and we have some different data for just the computers. So you can see that's computer-specific data, and that shows you, some different pieces of data. And again, you can see these special fields that we've created there that give you a window into what's going on. Okay, I'm running low on time, so I'm just going to skip a bit of stuff, but I will show you again how we're getting the data coming in. So the data is coming in because I've defined this coming in, so it's getting sucked in from the computers that we're monitoring and being put in there. So custom fields. So the custom field data, okay, again, I'm going to do a quick one here just to show you how we train it to get the data that we want. So what happens is that you're often going to find you're getting raw data. And the raw data is, useful, but you want to get it into fields that can be analyzed better by Power BI and by OMS as well too. So for example, let's look at some rule data here. This is where you use the OMS custom field capability to add a little bit of data. So I've already done that, and that's what these fields are, but I'm going to show you what the process was to do that. So for example, we have a rendered description here. I like working off that. We can extract the fields. You can specify one log, and I don't want to look at just those specific event IDs because I'm using a couple, and we're working off description. So let's say I want to create a new field for this control coming out of there. So I'll call it webinar control, and I'll just extract it. And you can see the search results from the training, and we'll see we got the values, and it actually worked pretty good. The no match is probably from a 102 record, so we're good. So we've created the thing. Sometimes you have to go through and you'll find that the results aren't right, and you can actually click on here, modify this highlight, or ignore results like that. So you're basically training the custom field algorithm to get the best possible results from your data. So let's just save that extraction here. We called it webinar, and you can go in and you're going to see in settings, data, and there's our custom fields, and you can see there's the webinar one that we created. It's event text, and we're going to remove it now because it takes a while for things to happen going through to Power BI, and we've already created one here, and we're going to use it on the Power BI side. Okay, so looking at OMS again, all of this information is collected either from, you can take it in from SCOM itself or from runbooks. So the way you create runbooks within your environment is runbooks typically workflow PowerShell runbooks. Normally in the old days used to come in just from Azure. But Microsoft created this automation hybrid worker which allows you to go and install a little bit of PowerShell at a machine inside your infrastructure, basically tunnels a connection into Azure for you. It'll encrypt everything over that connection, very secure, and it'll actually deploy the scripts to the hybrid runbook worker, which in turn can deploy it to machines inside your network. So this explains the process of how to set up those hybrid runbook workers inside your environment. Very easy, very painless. I've done it multiple times, and it works very well. And so sometimes, depending on the connectivity within your network, you may have to create multiple ones to be able to handle the entire network. I know we do within ours. I suspect you probably will within yours as well, too. Okay, so we're using the Azure automation stuff. We've got some stuff here. We've defined some assets, some credentials that we're going to use to execute these runbooks. So let's look at the runbooks that we've created. And so we've got a bunch of runbooks. I'm going to just show you a simple test one, and then I'll show you the one that we actually use. This one is very useful. I've provided it to a number of people who want to get started with using runbooks to actually do stuff on premise. So I'm just going to show you this runbook here. So you can see it takes a bunch of parameters, 2 to be exact. One's mandatory, and that's the credentials that you need to run the script with. And then we have an optional list of computers. If you don't provide the list, you can see we use an automation variable called computer list, which defines the list of computers for us. So typically that's how you'd run in a large environment, but for just testing purposes now, I'm just going to run it. And let's see, we're going to just edit this. So we're going to change it to say hello webinar world, so you can see that this is actually unique. So basically what we do is get the list of computers, we're going to process them all, and for each one we're going to run this script in parallel. It'll tell us processing, and then it'll say hello world, and you'll see the script actually runs physically on the computer that you've deployed it to, and it'll output the PowerShell version table, just so you can see the version. So I edited that. I'm going to save it. I'm going to publish it, and we're going to start it. So let's, we'll use the select user. It doesn't need high security for this. And because we're running short on time, I'm just going to run it on 2 machines. And you can see normally the default is to run it on Azure, but we want to run it on a hybrid, and this is the one that we've got inside our network. There's another one, but I don't need to use it for this. So I'm going to kick off the script. And you can see it's queued up. So it's queued up. It's basically running. Azure's got to make the connection to the hybrid runbook worker group. It's going to take a little bit of time to, encrypt everything, send it down the tunnel, package up everything that it needs to in a secure fashion. But hopefully we should see results coming out relatively quickly. There, it's starting, so we should get the results momentarily. Okay, call me a liar here. It's usually slow the first time you run it. There we go. So you can see, hello webinar, there's our two machines there. So from Silman SCOM, from build 2016, and you can see there's the information about PowerShell that's running on them. You can see that we actually have the same versions running on both, which is good. We keep track, or OMS Automation keeps track of the jobs that have been running. And you can see that, yeah, we've historically ran a bunch of different tests while I was preparing. Here's where I was doing some development and I had some bad code, and you can see that it's failed. So you keep track of what's going on. Now that's a simple little test run book. So that's the simple case. So what we've done is we've created something much more complex here to handle the high trust compliance, to run the scripts that we talked about for each of the safeguards. And so you can see this here, and we actually compress things there and encrypt them a little bit. And down at the bottom, you can see there's the meat of the script, and it actually executes scripts for each of those individual safeguards, which goes in and writes the event log data and saves it for us into the event logs, which OMS then pulls up. So let's go back. Okay, we're running a little bit over already. I apologize for that. Let's just go up into, just want to show you, so here's the OMS view that we've created for this. And so we've got some graphics here. They're okay. They're nowhere near as powerful as what you get in OMS, and they just basically break down to search queries. So you deep dive in and search queries, which aren't very good. You can see, here's a list, and basically that's what it's doing. It's just giving you the search queries, and there you can see our custom fields. Okay, so then let's go back into OMS and from OMS into Power BI and back into the high trust compliance pack. And now you can see that you've got much richer data, much more interactive, much more valuable. You can, let's say I only want to look at, let's say I want to look at these two guys, which are the DCs. So I can look at the DCs in more detail, or you can look at one particular machine. I want to look at this machine here and just see what's going on with him. You can see the antivirus, like I said, because it contributes to 3 controls. It shows up 3 times. 1, 2, 3. There you go. And that's failing, so we should be doing something about that. Each one, it's nice to see some successes, but again, some very, very useful stuff going on here, and all based on, some pretty simple event log data that we sucked in via OMS and took back into Power BI and created these rich reports, which you can pretty up and make available to management. So just to summarize here, what we did was we created showed you the script. It runs on OMS, runs data to the event log on the individual computers. OMS reads the event log data. The OMS custom field reformats the data into a more usable format. OMS exports the data up to the Power BI data sets, and the data sets are then viewed within reports within Power BI, and the tiles can be brought up, surfaced up in dashboards. So I hope that gives you a pretty good overview of what's going on. Let's see, are there any questions?
Hey, Paul,
okay.
you've got a couple questions there. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Okay. Can I integrate Power BI output into a SCOM dashboard, either natively? Yeah, you can. You should be able to create, there's an article creating links to Power BI dashboards. So you could create a link to a Power BI dashboard, share it, and then add a page into your SCOM console. Into a SCOM console. Sorry, you can't do it into a SCOM dashboard that I know of. Although SQL 2016 has started to provide, there's a fine line between what they're providing and their new reporting services and Power BI. So a lot of these features should become available within SCOM dashboards in the future. I can look into this and get you more details, John. Randy, I can get a list of the questions afterwards, hopefully.
Yes, yes, you can, Paul.
I'll respond via email.